Silverthorne Pulse. I'm Kim Jardin with the Town of Silverthorne, and I'm here with Town Manager Ryan Highland, and we're going to recap the June 28th Town Council meeting. Welcome.
Thanks.
All right, let's jump in with work session first. Judge Ron Carlson was present at the work session to talk about the overview of the Silverthorne and Dillon Municipal Court. Just kind of an overview, a touch base.
Yeah, once a year we touch base with the Honorable Mr. Carlson, and so he joined us last night. Also an opportunity for some of our newer council members to just hear from him and get his philosophy on kind of municipal court and how he manages that. And like you mentioned, it is Silverthorne/Dillon. We do a joint court in Silverthorne, and so just a nice conversation with the judge, and like I said, get some of his philosophy on how he manages municipal court, and yeah, just a short conversation.
Great. Moving on to short-term rental discussion regarding our regulations. So as this program evolves in town, there's been need to revisit what short-term rentals look like in Silverthorne.
Yeah, it was about a year ago we were having that community conversation about caps for different areas, and we ultimately, council approved the 10% zone and the 50% zone. We are not at those caps yet, but in the 10%, it's getting closer, and so part of the conversation is when we get there, we'll end up in a wait list situation, and how are we going to manage that, and what are some of the things we want to do with that. So conversation there, and then also we did have recently a complaint from a resident about a neighboring short-term rental, and so it was an opportunity to look back at the regulations and how are resolved complaints or formal complaints addressed, and so some opportunity to kind of refine some of that. So we'll come back to work session in a couple of weeks, continue that conversation. Ultimately, any changes that are proposed by the council will end up in ordinances at the council meetings, first and second readings, so the public will have opportunity to comment. But yeah, just further refining that program and some of the administrative needs that come along with, like I said, waiting lists and things like that.
Great. Excellent. So the town of Silverthorne has purchased the Pizza Hut building.
Yes.
What would we be using that for?
Yeah, you know, the big picture for that area are future transportation needs. So anybody that has been on Stevens Way over there is a little tight, and you've got a lot of turning movements that are going on and not a lot of capacity. So right now it's kind of one lane in, one lane out, and so our transportation master plan calls for 2 lanes in each direction. Pizza Hut would allow us to also swing that curve a bit wider and get a lot more stacking. So ultimately, that purchase was based on our transportation master plan. However, we do have an opportunity that we're looking at right now with Cafe Food Rescue and some other groups that they're working with. They have a need for a kitchen, and so we're working with them right now to see if we might be able to do something with a lease there. I think our transportation plans are, we're hoping we can do those shorter term, but I think shorter term, you know, even 2-3 years out would be really, really fast. So an opportunity to provide a nonprofit with some space potentially in the old Pizza Hut.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That could really work out well for them.
A win-win with being able to assist them, but also we have secured the opportunity to make those transportation improvements that are needed there.
Great.
Yeah.
And so the town of Silverthorne is also purchasing the FERC building, the Family Intercultural Resource Center building, right in the downtown core.
Yeah. I think in one of our prior updates, we probably mentioned a first reading of an ordinance to make that purchase. We also had a second reading recently, but last night in the work session, some of the associated agreements that were needed before final closing have been buttoned up now. And so what that looks like is town taking ownership to the property in the building, but then leasing back to FERC for a couple of years while they're under construction with the Soul Center over in Breckenridge. And then a secondary agreement that speaks to kind of the longer term partnership between FERC and the town, with the interest in always having a food bank on the north end of the county. And so whether that is at that location or somewhere else, just a commitment from both of our organizations to partner together to provide that into the future. So those two documents were attachments to a purchase agreement, and the town in about 24 hours will take ownership. And like I said, for a couple years, nothing will change. FERC will just be operating out of there. And then into the future, we'll see. But I think big picture, looking at that site, the town also owns the parking lot that's adjacent, so it's a nice big square. And ideally, I think getting some workforce housing on the second or third level, and having a more of a traditional downtown storefront orientation like we have in other parts of the town. So, but that's a ways off.
Right.
But yeah, excited that we were able to work with FERC on that purchase.
That's great. So we also had a discussion about the overview of CDOT's Floyd Hill project, which, even though it's not directly in our community, certainly impacts us because it's along the mountain corridor between Silverthorne and Denver.
Yeah, it's one of those projects that it's like, oh, that's exciting. We're going to finally see some improvements at Floyd Hill, but with some construction, delays in the coming years. Fortunately, I think we can pop some of those visuals on the screen. A lot of that work is not in the current roadway. It's adjacent to, and so not as impactful as some projects are on the corridor, but certainly with some rock work and other things, it's going to be something we're living with for a few years. So I encourage everybody to, look at what those plans are looking like, so they kind of know when they're driving the corridor what to expect. I know that CDOT will be providing lots of information on what's going on when and when you might expect delays. But good news, ultimately, it's an incredibly big and expensive project, and the fact that CDOT's got funding for it is good news.
Excellent. Yes, that's an 8-mile stretch, is my understanding, from Idaho Springs to the east side of Floyd Hill.
Yeah.
And it will span 5 years.
Yeah. Yep. Big project.
For sure. Okay, moving on to the regular council meeting. We had a couple of new liquor licenses. Actually, yeah, I guess they're both liquor licenses.
Mm-hmm.
One's for a new tavern, one's for a restaurant. So we had a new liquor license for Nick and Willie's,
Yeah.
and a new liquor license for the Thirsty Pika Tap Room.
Yeah. Nick and Willie's up at Summit Place. I think there was some great reporting in the Summit Daily about a year ago. We've got, it's Lillian and Edith, who are the new owners. And so they're introducing beer, which council commented beer goes pretty well with pizza. So that license was approved, and we're excited to see them moving forward. Council was just, really happy with their new ownership, and so that was approved. And then, over at the outlets at Silverthorne in the Blue Village, the Thirsty Pika Tavern, they'll have beer from Baker's Brewery and Angry James and Syndicate and other local breweries on tap there. And I think that one is more of a serve yourself, kind of a key card, get you access to the tap. And so they're going to be the newest folks at the outlets.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's great. So, we'll look forward to a grand opening or a ribbon cutting from
I'm sure
them.
We'll do that.
Check it out. So, public hearings, we had an ordinance authorizing you, the town manager, to execute a contract for the purchase of a property on Rainbow Drive.
Yeah, there's a residential unit right across the street from Town Hall. We've been purchasing a number of properties. We've been a bit behind some of our other municipalities in the county as far as units that we own where we can actually house our own employees. And so this is another unit that short-term may provide a rental opportunity for our employees, and maybe not too long from now could be a deed-restricted buy-down that we would put back out on the market.
We also had the town code modified related to business licensing and sales tax.
Yeah, we could probably put everybody to sleep by getting into those details. Some state statutes have changed, and so Finance Director Laura Kennedy is always on top of these things, and so just modifying our code so that we're always in compliance with the state statutes.
Great. And then we had a declaration of a council vacancy. Our council member, Chris Karen, unfortunately will be vacating her position.
Yeah, before we had the declaration, we did spend some time just recognizing Chris and her dedication to the council and the community, and really acknowledging not just what she's done on council, but even prior to her getting seated on council, she was really the catalyst behind the Locals Appreciation First Friday. She doesn't like to take credit for that personally, but made sure that credit's given where it's due, and she started that a number of years ago. I'm sure we mentioned here recently, the latest event brought in $40,000, which gets distributed to nonprofits. So over the history of that event, she's really done some great things through her Locals Liquors ownership and partnering on that. And then just reflecting on, her time on council and, some heavy lift, short-term rental regulations, not an easy topic. She was there for that, served on the committee that provides the scholarships to our high school seniors. And, really, I think Chris gets some credit for bringing our sustainability efforts into more focus, hiring a position for that. So in a short time on council, made a really big impact. So Chris is not leaving the community. She's just moving into an unincorporated area later this summer, so she won't be eligible to serve. So presented her with a key to the city and some other gifts, and just, gonna miss her. She'll still be around though, and I know wants to be involved, and so we'll stay connected. That then led us to what the code requires, which is an official declaration of that vacancy. And so what council's doing here, they just had a vacancy that they filled back in March. So they had a whole bunch of folks that they had interviewed, and they've requested that a few of those folks who were interested come back, and so they've scheduled 2 interviews for July 12th, and they will then have to make a selection for an appointment that they could make either on the 12th or the second meeting in July. So that's the plan. Fortunately, they don't have to start from scratch because they just did a whole bunch of interviews. So
that's great. So we'll be filling that position quickly.
Yep, getting someone up to speed, and we've got a council retreat coming up in September, so that'll give them some time to get up to speed before the council retreat.
Great. Well, I think that's all that we have for today.
That was it.
That was it.
Council got out while there was still daylight, and that's always great in the summer. And so we'll be back on July 12th.
Great. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.